Hello friends, welcome everyone. Today we are going to talk about the book 5 Japanese Rules for Discipline. It was 10:30 p.m. A slight stillness had descended upon the largest government hospital's ICU, but the beeping of machines and the occasional footfalls broke that silence. Ria, a young nurse, was busy with her night shift. It was her third consecutive night shift, and fatigue was clearly visible in her eyes. But still, her dedication hadn't waned. Ria had always loved nursing. She believed it was not just a job, but a service. But slowly, life's responsibilities and the daily hassles of the hospital were mentally exhausting her. She felt as though everything had become mechanical. Administering medicine, preparing reports, checking monitors, everything had become a routine. Admitted in that ICU was an elderly patient, Rameshji. He was about 65 years old, recovering after heart surgery. He had no special visitors. Only his daughter would come sometimes and leave quickly. Rameshji had a calm demeanor, but there was a depth in his eyes, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. One night, as Ria was giving him medicine, Rameshji slowly asked, "Beta, what's your name?" Ria smiled and replied, "Ria, a very beautiful name," he said, and then fell silent. From that day on, every night when Ria went to him, Rameshji would try to talk about something. Initially, he would just ask about her well-being. Then slowly he began to share his stories, tales of his old shop, his family's history, and some of his life's regrets. Ria was a bit neutral at first, but as the days went by, she began to find peace listening to Rameshji's stories. A silent friendship had developed between them, a friendship where there were no demands. Just each other's presence was enough. One night, as Ria was doing a routine checkup, Rameshji suddenly told her, "Ria, let me tell you something. Life is also like a house. Many things accumulate in it, some useful, some useless. But when we don't take the time to sort those things out, they become cluttered. And then we ourselves get lost in it." Ria was a little surprised. Meaning? The meaning is this. Just like your ICU, if all unnecessary things are kept in it, would you be able to work easily? Ria shook her head. No, it would be very difficult. It's the same in our lives. We have to sort. We have to decide what's important and what's not. The things, people, or habits that don't help us improve should be gently removed. Only then can we think clearly. Ria felt as though someone had spoken her mind. In fact, over the last few months, a lot of clutter had filled Ria's life too. Some old relationships that had no meaning, some guilt that she unnecessarily burdened herself with, and some self-doubt that was slowly hollowing her out from the inside. All of this felt like a heavy bag on her shoulders. From that day on, Ria began to look inside herself. She took out a small notebook and made 2 columns, necessary and unnecessary. She wrote down every thought, activity, and relationship that was draining her mental energy. Slowly, she began to distance herself from those things that were pulling her down. For example, during hospital breaks, she would always sit with people who would just badmouth others. Now she slowly changed her spot. A bad relationship that was only surviving on guilt, she also ended it with respect. Instead of scrolling on Instagram and Facebook for hours, she tried meditation. She also cleaned her room. Old clothes, unnecessary notes, unused gadgets. She donated or recycled everything. As her physical space was getting clean, her inner space was also clearing up. Rameshji's words were like a soft light descending within her. One night, Ria told him, "What you said about sorting, I tried it and it really feels so much lighter." Rameshji smiled. "See, beta, that's the first lesson. Until we sort things out, we won't understand what's truly important." Ria nodded and said, "You are my first patient from whom I have learned my own therapy." Their small friendship was now not just confined to the ICU's boundaries. It was a lesson, a guidance that was helping Ria move forward in life. Now, whenever Ria met a new patient, she didn't just read their reports but also listen to their stories. She was not just a nurse anymore, but a listener, an observer too. One day, Rameshji was discharged. As he was leaving, he gave Ria a small piece of paper. It said, "To keep life clean and tidy, learn to sort every once in a while. People, things, and most of all, your emotions. Ria carefully placed that paper in her diary, and now every month she would take out a day to ask herself a question. Am I only carrying the necessary things? Sorting had now become not just a hospital procedure, but a personal philosophy, and perhaps this process is necessary in all our lives.
If you like our free summary, you can subscribe to our channel, buy our membership, or support us via UPI. Now, let's return to the summary. We are all in an invisible ICU, where sometimes the brain monitor beeps, sometimes the heart's battery runs low. And in that state, clarity only comes when we pause and look at our lives once. Are the things we have truly necessary? Or are we just breathing in a pile of garbage? This habit of sorting is not just a cleaning technique. It is a journey of self-awareness that teaches us that true peace lies in less. And when we remove the unnecessary things, the necessary ones shine brightly. That's the real healing. Clarity was now slowly beginning to come into Ria's life. The lesson of sorting had taught her many things: what's important and what's just mental or emotional garbage. She now felt much lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted from her shoulders, but the journey didn't end there. In fact, it had just begun. One night, after finishing her ICU duty, when she reached her small room in the hostel, she took a deep breath and looked around. On the bedside table was a stack of books, a teacup in one corner, some half-folded clothes on the bed, and a table filled with medicines, a laptop, a water bottle, and messy files. Everything was necessary, but nothing was in its place. Ria told herself, I have removed the junk, but what's the discipline for all this now? Only if all this is in its right place will life run smoothly. She remembered that the night before Rameshji was discharged, he had said, Beta, the first lesson is sorting, and the second is Satan, putting everything in its right place. Ria had asked with curiosity, meaning like a book's place is in the cupboard? Rameshji had smiled, not just for books, for thoughts, habits, and priorities too. Everything should have a specific place so that it can be accessed without any clutter when needed. Now, looking at the state of her room, Ria understood what he meant. The next day was her day off. She decided that today she would properly organize her room. First of all, she made a plan. She observed her daily tasks and saw what things she needed repeatedly and what things were rarely used. For example, her stethoscope, some reference books, phone charger, and water bottle, she used all these almost every day. On the other hand, some old medical notes, 2 extra jackets, or decorative items were just taking up space.
She created a small section for daily use where she kept all the things she needed every day. She cleared a shelf next to the table and neatly arranged her stethoscope, notes, pens, sanitizer, and a flashlight on it. She permanently plugged in her phone charger near the socket, so she wouldn't have to look for it repeatedly. The books she had to refer to often, she kept them on the bedside shelf. Then she made a box for rarely used items and pushed it under the bed. She put jackets, old notes, and rarely read books in it. She washed the teacup and placed it in the kitchen cabinet. Now her room felt quite clean and functional. She noticed that her mind also felt calmer now. Before, it would take her time to find something, and she would get annoyed. But now everything was easily accessible and convenient. Satan had now begun to take on a deeper meaning for her, not just as a method for arranging physical items. She began to think, are her priorities also in their right place? She often used to push back her personal goals, like preparing for a new course or starting yoga. Her focus was mostly on the needs of others. She often neglected her own improvement. She thought, just as my room's things have a discipline, my time and energy should also have one. She bought a planner and began to plan her week. First of all, she gave herself a specific time for self-care, half an hour every morning for yoga and meditation. Then she set a reading time, 20 minutes every night, no matter how tired she was. She made a note on her phone, the first 3 priorities of the day, so that every day she would only spend her energy on things that were truly important. She also began to arrange things systematically in the hospital now. Before, she would get flustered in any emergency because equipment would sometimes be under the glove box and sometimes on a separate trolley. Now she also rearranged her nursing trolley, frequently used equipment on the top tray and rarely used items below. Syringes, cotton, scissors, alcohol swabs. She gave everything a specific place. This increased her speed, and it also helped others when they used her trolley. Slowly, her effectiveness began to increase. The seniors also started noticing that Ria's shifts ran smoothly. There were fewer mistakes, and she was always prepared. One day, the matron asked her, "Ria, are you doing something different these days? You seem very organized." Ria smiled and said, "I've just started putting some things in their right place, outside and inside too." That day, she felt that Seiton was not just a method of arranging space, but a habit of coordinating the mind, time, and energy. She also began to put her relationships in order. There were some people with whom she only maintained formal relationships, but due to their unnecessary expectations, she would get mentally exhausted. She clearly defined boundaries, when to talk to whom, who to avoid, and on which people to spend her energy. Now, when she returned from the hospital, her room felt like a peaceful place to her, a place where everything was kept with purpose, away from clutter. Her routine had become disciplined. Her inner energy no longer felt scattered, but was focused. A month later, when Ramesh Ji came to the hospital for a follow-up and met Ria, he saw a new radiance in her. "Beta, how are you?" Ria gave him water and said, "The second technique you taught me worked." "Seiton." Ramesh Ji smiled. "Now get ready for the next lesson." Ria said with enthusiasm, "Of course." On this journey of life, Ria had now begun to understand that discipline is not just about controlling external things. It's an internal coordination. When every emotion, thought, habit, and object is in its right place, life starts running smoothly. Sorting taught her what to keep and what to let go of. Seiton taught her to keep everything in its right place so that it creates value. And that's the real formula for a productive and peaceful life. With this new realization, Ria was not just a nurse anymore. She had become a coach for herself who was trying to get better every day with small steps, sometimes learning from a patient, sometimes from her own room, sometimes from her routine, and sometimes from self-reflection. And this lesson was one day going to take her to that height where she could not only heal others, but also lead her own journey with pride. Ria's life was now moving in a new rhythm. Sorting taught her what to keep and what to let go of. Seiton taught her to keep everything in its right place, but the real journey was about to begin. One Sunday morning, Ria arrived at the hospital early. Today, a deep cleaning activity was scheduled in the ICU. The staff was told to clean their respective areas, remove old files, disinfect equipment, and thoroughly wipe every surface. Some people were a little annoyed. "This job is for the cleaning staff. Why should we do it?" But Ria liked this idea. She knew that cleaning didn't just mean external sparkle, but a habit that showed discipline and respect. Ria looked at her workspace. Her nursing trolley, on which she now focused quite a bit, was almost fine, but some small things were escaping her notice. She looked closely. A bit of dust accumulated in the corner of the tray, some old plastic wrappers stuck in the syringe holder, and dirt accumulated under the glove box. All of this had escaped her notice before. She put on gloves, took sanitizer and a cloth, and began to diligently scrub her entire area. She didn't just clean from the top, but peeked into every corner and cleaned. She picked up each piece of equipment one by one, cleaned it, and put it back in its place. While working, she had a strange sense of ownership. This is my space, and it's my responsibility to keep it clean and tidy. She remembered that when she was little, her mother would always say, "Beta, the place where you spend most of your day reflects your character." Now she understood that her space in the hospital was not just a place to work, but a reflection of her mindset. If she didn't take care of her own space, then how could she expect others to respect it? In the middle of cleaning, a new thought came to her mind. Are there some corners inside her where dust has accumulated, which she doesn't see in her daily rush? Like small habits that weren't bad, but also weren't essential, like checking the phone too much or eating food quickly without properly tasting it. Or emotional wrappers that were hidden in her heart, something a friend said that hurt but she couldn't say, or repeatedly blaming herself for a mistake. CISO, which means to shine, was not just a process of making things shiny, but a habit of paying attention. When we ourselves clean our surroundings, we notice where we become careless and how small details affect our work. Ria now started this cleaning in her room too. This time she wasn't just cleaning to remove dust, she was focusing on every single thing that was previously ignored, like expired bills kept in the table drawer, some broken clips stuck in the cupboard, or some old angry notes written in her diary. She decided that from now on, she would dedicate some time every week just to this shining process.
She also started cleaning her mind. One evening, she was sitting on the terrace and told herself, "Ria, are there some thoughts that are buried deep inside and are slowly consuming you?" Then she took out her notebook and started writing those feelings down. Guilt, anger, jealousy, sadness, whatever was there, she wrote it all down without judgment. Then she wrote next to each one, "Can I let this go?" And where the answer was yes, she wrote, "Let it go." This shining had reached her soul. Slowly, her anxiety began to decrease. She became more focused, and most importantly, she began to understand the pain of others more deeply. One night, a new patient was admitted to the ICU, a teenager injured in a road accident. The boy was very scared, and his mother was crying incessantly. Ria went to them, held their hands, and said, "Don't worry, he's safe. We will try our best." Ria herself cleaned the area around the boy's bed. She checked his constant footfalls, his oxygen pipes, and made sure everything was hygienic and easily accessible. The boy's mother asked in surprise, "You do everything yourself?" Ria smiled and said, "When we ourselves pay attention to the place we are in, that place also gives us something special back. Peace, self-confidence, and care." That day, the doctor also noticed that the level of care Ria's patients were getting was very detailed. Everything was organized and clean, which also made diagnosis and treatment easier. Now, the other nurses in the hospital also started getting influenced by Ria. One day, her colleague told her, "Ria, before I thought that cleaning was just a job, but now I understand that it shows our attitude." Ria smiled and replied, "Shining doesn't start from the outside, but from the inside." Ria now saw cleaning as a form of meditation. When she cleaned her room, she paid attention to whether the dust was just on the surface or if there was some instability somewhere inside her. Were the things just kept, or did they have a specific purpose? CISO taught that when we ourselves clean our surroundings, we learn to take responsibility for ourselves. It teaches us that perfection lies in the details, and when we start giving importance to every small thing, it also begins to reflect in the rest of our lives. These small habits of Ria were now starting to inspire others as well. The hospital ward boy team also started taking more care now. Everyone now started taking a little extra responsibility because they felt that if one nurse could maintain things with so much attention herself, then why not us? Shining, or CISO, was now not just a symbol of cleanliness, but had become a shared mentality. Ria now felt that discipline was not a list of big rules. It was about taking care of those small things that happen around us every day. And when we polish those things, we are also polishing our lives. Sorting taught what to keep. Satan taught where to keep it. CISO taught how to maintain it every day with care, attention, and love. And these three habits had now become the foundation of Ria's life, a foundation on which she could build her future with confidence, be it personal life or professional. Maybe that was the real success, to shine from the outside, but also be just as clean and bright from the inside. A new stability had now come into Ria's life. The lessons of sorting, Satan, and CISO had completely changed her thoughts and lifestyle. She was beginning to understand the purpose of everything everything. Every emotion had an identity, and now she felt contentment in small things too. But as she was improving herself, another question also started coming to her mind. Will all these good habits last for a long time? She knew that people often start something new with inspiration, but maintaining consistency is the real challenge. And then one day during a hospital staff meeting, the matron informed everyone that a new system was going to be implemented in the ICU now, a standard operating procedure, so that every nurse and ward boy's work would follow the same pattern. She took out a chart, which clearly stated where to keep which equipment, what the steps for dressing would be, how the emergency trolley should be arranged, and what things should be checked at the end of every shift. Checklists were also given, color-coded labels, and posters were also put up on the walls. This seemed very logical and exciting to Rhea. She thought, just as we create manuals for machines, we should also create some standard rules for our own work and lives, so that we don't have to think every time and consistency is maintained. Rhea remembered that a few weeks ago, when a junior nurse asked for scissors from the dressing trolley, she couldn't find it because everyone used to leave it anywhere. But now when the equipment will be in color-coded drawers and everything will be labeled, she herself won't just be able to work faster, it will help others. She immediately started adopting this system. Before every morning shift, she would check the checklist. Were the gloves in the right number? Was the oxygen cylinder full? Was the suction machine plugged in? At first, some people thought it was extra work, but when the work started running smoothly, panic and emergencies lessened. Everyone realized how important this standardization was. Rhea also started applying Seketsu in her personal life. She created a weekly planner for herself, a daily structure, meal plans, exercise time, study time, and even a time for relaxation on weekends. She put up a whiteboard on her study table where color-coded tasks were written, red for urgent tasks, blue for personal development, and green for rest and rejuvenation. Now when she woke up in the morning, she didn't have to spend time thinking about what to do today. Every task was specified. She worked in a flow, and she began to understand that the real meaning of discipline is freedom. When systems are in place, the mind is free for creativity and peace. Rhea had developed another habit. Every Sunday, she would check her checklist from the past week and review which habits were consistent and where she had failed. This feedback loop gave her the opportunity to improve. One day, a new trainee nurse came to the ICU. Neha. She was very nervous because the ICU environment was overwhelming her. Rhea comforted her and said, "Don't be afraid. Just follow the process. Everything is organized." Rhea showed her the chart, explained the trolley, and said, "Every drawer has a label, a color code. Just remember the steps, and slowly everything will feel easy." Neha hesitated and asked, "What if I make a mistake?" Rhea smiled and said, "This standardization is here so that the chances of making mistakes are less and everyone does the same kind of work. It's not just for control, but for comfort too." Neha asked Rhea, "How are you yourself so organized?" Rhea replied, "Because I've understood that when every task has a pattern, peace comes in place of chaos." Rhea also told Neha about her personal journey, how her life was also scattered before. She would sometimes forget some important things. Sometimes she would be on the verge of a mental breakdown. But when she adopted the philosophy of Seketsu, that is, creating a system and consistently following it, stability came in both her work and her mind. Now her room had become a small system, labeled boxes in every drawer, color-coded hangers in the cupboard, and separate shelves in the bathroom just for daily essentials.
Her phone was also organized. Apps in folders, reminders in the calendar, and a tracker for goals. She had even made a checklist for managing her emotions. Like, whenever she felt annoyed, she would ask herself, "Have I eaten something today? Is my sleep complete? Did some words hurt? Am I overthinking?" Next to every yes, she also wrote down a suggestion, like walking, deep breathing, listening to music, or talking to a trusted friend.
Seketsu made her feel empowered, a self-confidence that comes from clarity, not from control. Now in the ICU too, her name started being taken as a role model. Whenever a new system was implemented, Ria was the first to be put in training because she would adopt every step systematically and would also help others learn. Ria now felt that discipline is not created from inspiration, but from structure. And that structure comes from systems like Seketsu. One evening when she was on a tea break, she wrote in her diary, "Standardization means giving life a pattern where everything is in its place. Emotions, work, equipment, and even reactions. When everything is in a rhythm, the mind naturally becomes calm. This is not external discipline, but internal coordination." That day, a medical emergency came to the hospital. A patient with a cardiac arrest. Everyone started running around, but every staff member in the ICU was calm because everyone knew who would do what. The equipment was in its place, the emergency trolley was ready. The doctor quickly got the defibrillator, and the process started within minutes. The patient survived, and when everything was calm, the matron said, "If everything went smoothly today, one reason for it is that we are all following a common process. This is the effect of Seketsu." Ria smiled, put her checklist in her pocket, and thought, this shouldn't just be in the hospital, but in the whole of life. Ever think, if every part of our life becomes a well-labeled drawer, where we know which emotion to take out when, where to keep which thought, and how to do which work, then how easy life would be. Seketsu teaches us that consistency is the magic that builds the foundation of success. And when systems work, stress decreases. Ria now knew that sorting, Saitan, Siso, and Seketsu, these 4 steps could be applied not just in the hospital, but in every area of life. And now her eyes were on the next lesson where she could refine herself even more, so that every day she could be her best version. Ria's life was now moving in a different rhythm. Sorting taught her what to keep and what to let go of. Saitan taught her to keep everything in its right place. Siso explained the importance of attention and care. And Seketsu taught her to turn all of them into a system and give it consistency. But the real challenge was now ahead, to repeat all this every day, without getting tired, without falling behind. This was Shitsuke, that last and most essential step which turns these 4 steps into a permanent habit. Now, when Ria woke up in the morning, she had a sense of satisfaction that her day was already planned. Her room was clean, her equipment was organized, and her mindset was focused. But after a few weeks passed, she felt that everything had become automated. But the excitement was waning, as if everything had become mechanical. One evening when she was returning from the ICU, she saw a new nurse in the hallway who was writing notes quickly and visibly looked overwhelmed. Ria went to her and said, "The first week is difficult." The girl nodded wearily and said, "Yes, so many rules, so many things to remember. Everything feels robotic." Ria smiled slightly because she herself was like that a few years ago. Then she asked herself, am I also going back into that robotic loop? She understood that if she didn't actively follow Shitsuke, all the systems would slowly break down. Maintaining doesn't just mean following, but thinking about improvement every day, giving yourself new challenges, and placing discipline above inspiration. She decided that now she would improve her systems even more, not just in the hospital, but in her personal development too. She created a small structure in her diary called Ria Routine Improvement Approach. 1. What did I do well today? 2. Where is improvement needed? 3. Is there any new way to do this work better? 4. One habit on which I will focus for the next 7 days. Every night she would review herself for 10 minutes and practice one new small habit every week. For example, 1 week a phone-free morning routine, the next week gratitude journaling, then mindful eating. Initially, some habits didn't stick. Sometimes she would forget to review or would get lazy for a day or two. But now she didn't feel guilty about herself. She had understood that discipline doesn't mean perfection, but consistently getting back on the right path. In the hospital too, she saw that some people had started following the system loosely.
The labels on the emergency trolley had become blurred, some checklists were missing, and a bit of chaos was starting to increase in the ward. Rhea herself took the initiative and, with the matron's permission, planned a 5S refresh week. A small session was held for the entire staff where she reminded everyone again of the philosophy of 5S. She didn't scold anyone or blame anyone.
She just shared examples and her own journey. She asked everyone, "Do you all remember how much fun we were having when we first implemented 5S? Everything felt organized. Emergency cases were handled smoothly. Patients were satisfied. Can we bring that energy back?" Then she shared a game plan, a color-coded rewards chart where the nurse who maintained her area according to 5S every day would get points. At the end of the week, there would be a small gift or appreciation. Surprisingly, everyone participated with enthusiasm. Now, the daily checklist became active again. Discussions began on which areas needed improvement, and the junior staff also got inspired. This culture of maintenance had now become not a habit, but a shared mindset. Rhea herself also continued to learn now. She took an online time management course and joined a book club where health workers would discuss weekly books. She set a quote as her phone's wallpaper: "Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now." She observed that a maturity had now come in her. Before, she would get excited over small wins. Now she kept a long-term mindset. She had learned that habits don't become strong until they are consistently nurtured. One day, a small mistake happened in the ICU. A file was placed on the wrong bed number, which caused confusion. Fortunately, no major harm was done, but the matron gathered everyone. Rhea herself volunteered and said, "We can create a system where every file folder has a color-coded tag, red for ICU 1, blue for ICU 2, and the handover checklist will be included during shift change." The matron praised her and said, "This is the real Shitsuke, when we don't run away from mistakes, but find improvement in them." Rhea now saw every small mistake as a lesson. One day she wrote in her diary, "Initially I thought discipline was a struggle. Then, because of the system, things became easy. But now I've realized that the real game is consistency. Maintaining means trying to be a little better every day, whether there's inspiration or not." She had now become a mentor for the junior nurses. Many girls like Neha would now come to her and say, "Seeing your routine, it feels like everything is possible." Rhea didn't just teach them rules, but emphasized building a mindset. The Rhea method was now being adopted by many people. Rhea's small notes, systems explained in simple language, and practical examples had become relevant to everyone. Rhea now felt proud of herself because she knew that she was not just influencing herself, but a whole work culture, a culture where there was discipline, respect, clarity, and most importantly, consistency. Shitsuke taught her that everyone can create systems, but nurturing them every day is the real discipline. Rhea now saw life as an evolving system where there was no limit to improvement, and every day was a new opportunity to refine herself. She was not just a nurse anymore. She was a disciplined leader who had promised herself that no matter what, she would never stop her improvement, because maintaining was not an option. It had now become her way of life. So friends, this was our book summary for today. Do let us know how you liked it by commenting, and thank you for listening to the summary till the end.